And good morning in Germany, konnichiwa in Japan. Welcome to this outreach event of the German-Japanese Energy Transition Council. My name is Johanna Schilling. I'm Managing Director of ECOS, the organizational secretariat of the GJETC. And I'm very honored to guide you through today's event. Now, as you've seen, for the Japanese interpretation, please click on that globe symbol and choose Japanese. Later in our event today, you can post your comments or questions. So just use the chat function to post your questions or comments, if possible, in English. Now, let's get started. Please welcome with me Dr. Stefan Thomas, who is the German co-chair of the GJETC, and Stefan is also the director of the Energy, Transport and Climate Policy Division at the Wuppertal Institute. Now, Stefan, what do we have on the agenda today?
Thank you, Johanna. Good afternoon and good morning to everybody, also from me as a German co-chair. It has become a good tradition to present the results of the studies made for the GJETC at an outreach event in the same year. And this event will present two recent studies that discuss a comparative analysis of roadmaps towards a climate-neutral petrochemical production system, and second, strategies, concepts, and measures for decarbonizing the building stock. Last year, we had studied the possibilities to decarbonize the steel industry. This year, we analyzed the other very big energy-consuming industry sector, namely the chemical and especially the petrochemical industry. The peculiarity of this industry is that it has been using fossil fuels as a feedstock, not only as an energy source. And so this industry has the possibility to use carbon dioxide as an alternative feedstock together with clean hydrogen. However, the effectiveness in respect to decarbonization depends on the time of storage in products, and ultimately there should be no CO2 be used, but it should be reused either from biomass or plastic recycling or direct air capture. Then the second subject, buildings, they are also very important for climate change and climate action, because they are responsible for about 1/3 of energy and greenhouse gas. Also energy efficiency in buildings and use of renewables is also very important for energy security. So the GJETC has focused especially on the building sector over the past year, holding a stakeholder dialogue with industry representatives in March, and planning an innovation roundtable focusing on innovative processes and materials to economize energetic renovation in December. Picking up this theme, this outreach event will focus on the second study, with two council members giving further input on the recent developments in the field. I believe that in both sectors there is ample potential for mutual learning and joint developments between Japan and Germany. So I'm looking very much forward to the discussion with you all today.
I'm muted. Thank you very much, Stefan. So a lot on the agenda today, and that was just the studies that have been completed. The council is already working on new studies, but I will mention that later today. Now, of course, there's also a co-chair to the council on the Japanese side. It's Tatsuya Terasawa of the Institute of Economics in Japan. Unfortunately, he cannot be with us today for other duties, but on behalf of Terasawa-san, I would like to ask Ichiro Kutani, the senior researcher at the Institute of Energy Economics Japan and also the head of the GJETC study team, to give some welcome words from the Japanese side. Please, Ichiro.
Thank you very much, Johanna, for the introduction. My name is Kutani, Senior Research Director of IEJ. On behalf of Japanese co-chair, Mr. Terasawa, CEO and the chairman of IEJ, I'd like to thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to participate in this webinar today. The German-Japanese Energy Transition Council was established in 2016. The goal of the council is to bring together the academic communities of Japan and Germany in order to contribute to the realization of the energy transition that both countries are aiming to achieve. We have conducted joint research in a number of areas, including the industry and the buildings. And today we would like to discuss some of the results of last year's research on the carbon neutralization of petrochemical industry and the buildings. The petrochemical industry is one of the typical hard-to-abate sector that require difficult measures, including carbon recycling. In building stocks, the difficult issue is to take measures for existing buildings which have a long service life and a huge number of stocks. Although there are no easy answer to either of those issues, we hope that today's discussion will provide some food for thought on the future of energy transition in both Japan and Germany. Again, thank you very much for participating in today's webinar, and I sincerely hope you enjoy today's session. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. So it's really two important topics that the Council has been tackling and is going to present today, and we're all looking forward to your views on what the Council has found out. Now, let us start with part one of our today's outreach, which is dedicated to the chemical and petrochemical industry study, how to decarbonize the petrochemical production system in both countries. So welcome with me, or with us, also Ms. Ilva Klo. She's a junior researcher in the Future Energy and Industry Systems Unit at the Wuppertal Institute and also part of the study team. Hi, Ilva. Okay, so together with Ichiro of the IHA, she will present the results of the study. And I think Ichiro will start, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Again, this is Kutani from the IHA. I will take a first half, and Ilva will speak about the last half. And let me start from the background and the purpose of this study. I present the three pillars of this study. The first one is the importance of this sector. As you may be aware, the petrochemical industry is one of the largest energy consuming sector in both countries. Amazingly, the same share, 24% of energy consumption comes from this petrochemical sector in this industry sectors. So we need to reduce CO2 emission from this sector to achieve carbon neutrality goal in both countries. And another important point is that this sector is very difficult to decarbonize. Since carbon is used as a material to produce the product, the chemicals. So theoretically, this sector cannot be decarbonized because it should use the carbon as a feedstock. So we need to pursue the carbon neutrality rather than decarbonizations. And third one is a learning opportunity. Germany and Japan are both the industrialized country, and both have a great chemical industries. And both industries are now trying to decarbonize, reduce carbon emission from both sectors. So those efforts or the strategy or the policy can be mutually learned to accelerate the effort in each country. And here's Japan's key strategy. I put the three pillars. The first one is strategy for feedstock. As I explained, this sector should inevitably use carbon, so that the supply of carbon itself is a challenge for this sector. For instance, we try to change the supply source of carbon from naphtha in case of Japan and natural gas in case of Germany to decarbonize carbon, let's say a biomass or the carbon removed resource, other recycled source of the carbon. And the second point is that the strategy for electricity. This sector will also consume lots of electricity to run the motors or the control the systems. And those electricity should come from renewable energy sources like solar PV and wind, or the nuclear power in case of Japan, or other source of the renewable sources like biomass or residual fuels. And in this case, the Japan, we may see some challenges to supply zero emission electricity, since because we are lacking of a flat land for settle the solar PV panels, or the land for onshore where the wind condition is good, or the water body which can install the offshore wind turbines. So we need to seek how to secure those decarbonized electricity supplying to this industry. And third strategy is the heat and the steam, how to generate heat and the steam without emitting carbon. And in this sense, effective utilization of waste heat is a baseline. And second point would be the CO2-free heat sources, such like blue or green hydrogen, or the ammonia, or carbon capture and utilization systems. And third one is a use of electric thermal conversion, change electricity to heat by implementing heat pump or others. And one point I should mention is that the carbon should be recycled when we apply the carbon recycling systems. Otherwise, the carbon should be removed to atmosphere, and that will emit as a carbon greenhouse gas emissions. And next is a key findings from our study last year. The first point is, unfortunately, Japan is weak in tangible action plan after 2030. Of course, the industry or the companies are trying to act against GHG emission reduction and implement the many measures. However, after 2030 or beyond, there are no tangible action plans in the government, in the policy, or the other company strategy. So we need to strengthen this part. And second point is existing strategy seems rely on the uncommercialized technologies, such like hydrogen or ammonia or carbon capture and utilizations, as I mentioned. So in any case, we need to make advancement in technology development. In other words, the cost reduction of those technologies. We already have technology to generate, produce, supply those hydrogen or ammonia. However, the cost is too high to be commercialized. So we need advancements of technology to reduce its cost. And third one is different views. In recent year in Japan, we see a surplus of petrochemical or the refining capacities in Japan. Since because our oil demand is declining. The declining trend is sharp, so we see a surplus of those capacities. So in this sense, before going to invest in the decarbonization technologies, we also need to invest for consolidating those capacities. So in our analysis, those three are the key challenges for Japan to decarbonize this petrochemical sector. And I will hand over my microphone to Hubert. So floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So moving the focus now to Germany. So quickly, the direct emissions from the German chemical sector are about 5% of Germany's emissions, and the size is about similar to Japan. And as you can see in the picture here, the chemical industry in Germany is sort of organized in integrated clusters that with connections over land into other countries. And Germany has also developed a number of scenario analysis for net zero energy systems as a whole, which also cover the chemical industry, which are the ones we have looked at in this study. These are both from governmental institutions and industry associations. Next, please. So in these, the main strategies for defossilization are the same as mentioned before. So it's about using CO2 and hydrogen as feedstock, which can also be imported. Biomass, although the discussion here is a little bit more about making sure this is sustainable, and recycling. And such systems may also require other production systems, so methanol-based and also electrification of steam crackers. And as you can see in this table, the main focus in the German studies is on this CO2-based production. When it comes to the energy in Germany, it's a big focus on the electricity, so renewable powers from the national grid, which is somewhat complemented a little bit with other sources. Next, please. The German roadmaps also discuss challenges and recommendations for policy. And the central challenges is discussed as a lacking business case, that it's still too expensive, and the large uncertainties of future conditions, mainly energy prices and technology development and upscaling. And then, of course, also the speed needed to reach the targets on time. And the policy recommendations then also go sort of in this direction about setting direction, coordinating, planning, and long-term commitments from policy. It's also about the global level playing field or compensating for when competition is seen as unfair. And some conclusions then from the study of the German roadmaps is, again, like in Japan, there are limited domestic resources, which means that global markets for certain renewable resources would be necessary. And despite these roadmap scenario analysis, the path forward is still far from clear. At the same time, the conditions for the industries and for the decarbonization options are really developing rapidly at this time. So now moving on to the sort of conclusions and comparison between Germany and Japan. So we see the similarities in the industries in size and their dependence on imports, and also challenges with high energy prices. But there are also major differences, like the geographical connections to other countries, and also the current energy mix used, if it's oil, coal, or gas, mainly. And when it comes to the roadmaps, we see a consensus around this mid-century net zero targets, at least, and also a similarity in that the domestic renewable resources are limited, and thus both really need import of synthetic fuels and feedstocks. But then the differences, again, are around the physical connections. For Japan, it's more about obtaining these things through ship transport, whereas Germany can utilize grids and pipelines. The non-feedstock energy use seen in the studies is for Japan a bit more range of imported fuels, whereas Germany has a strong focus on green electricity. And then also looking at the framing and narrative of the roadmaps. In Japan, there's a very strong focus on the energy security and efficiency of the solutions, whereas Germany has more of a renewable, sustainable, and green storytelling, with also focus on supply security as well. Next, please. So finally, we have some recommendations, and we see strong opportunities for collaboration here. There's a lot to learn together and from each other. Together when it comes to learning about the new energy carriers and feedstocks, and also new technologies, but also from each other in how we today have our energy supply systems, their efficiency and flexibility. But also when implementing policy, we can learn from each other as well. And finally, the development of global markets and supply chains for renewable chemicals is important for both. So here's also an opportunity to collaborate to create such markets and supply chains. And with that, that was the petrochemical study in short. So thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ilva. Thank you very much, Ichiro, for giving an insight into the content and the findings, the results of this study. If you have a look at the chat, you can see the link to the full study. Of course, it's a very complex topic. So if you would like to dive into it in more detail, just check out the whole study. It can be found on the GJETC website. And of course, now it's also the time for you, the audience, to post any questions or comments if you have on what you've just been presented. While there is no question at present, maybe I can ask a question. I think it was Ichiro who mentioned that of course there's a necessity to recycle the carbon, to carbon recycling. How about carbon storage or CO2 storage, carbon storage? I know there's a big discussion about that in Germany, about is there suitable space or locations for carbon storage, and also in Japan, I think you're thinking about shipping carbon to abroad, if I'm not mistaken. So can you give me some comment on that issue, carbon storage?
Yeah, thank you very much for the comments. As you pointed out, we are also looking at the carbon storage, extract the carbon from exhaust gas and then store it to the ground, underground or somewhere. And to my knowledge, unfortunately, Japan doesn't have significant potential to store CO2 in our land. So if we go for the CCS, we need to seek the location where to store the CO2. So that we are trying to identify where can we store the CO2 emission outside of Japan, and how will it cost, and what the benefit for the countries where receiving the CO2 emissions. So we are now trying to study the mutually beneficial schemes to transport the CO2 emission and store the CO2 emissions.
Right. Ilva, can you say anything about the German situation?
So for the chemical industry, since we use the carbon as a feedstock, I would say the focus is more about using the carbon as a chemical. But of course, they're also, I would say the industries are also looking at and seeing it as sort of a more feasible option to just store it. But I would say, since the discussion in Germany is a lot about, a bit more about, sustainable and circular solutions, and the roadmaps that we looked at, it was not so much a focus, or it would sometimes a bit more a bit more sort of controversial, but yeah, it's still definitely one of the strategies in the roadmaps as well, I would say.
Okay, now I just saw there's another question directly to you, Ilva. In Germany, the scenarios rely more on Fischer-Tropsch within the existing infrastructure and not on additional methanol. Can you comment on this again?
I would say it's sometimes not really specified. And since many of these cover the energy system as a whole, they more say, yeah, we can use synthetic naphtha or methanol. But yeah, I would also agree that my view is that the discussion around synthetic naphtha in Germany is bigger than in other countries, maybe because we have these refineries already in place. But I wouldn't say it's very clear which one is more highly preferred, actually.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you. Now there was another question which is rather broad. How can Japan and Germany reduce CO2 emissions from the industry sector by improving energy efficiency? I know that the Council has worked a lot on energy efficiency, and it will also continue to work on it. I don't know, Ichiro, can you give just a short comment on that?
Yes, thank you very much. Although I haven't talked about energy efficiency in my presentation, but the energy efficiency improvement is a precondition in industries at all the sectors. Each improvement should be made before going to supply side.
Definitely. And I can just hint that the Council is going to work on energy efficiency governance in both countries in the next one of the next studies. So we will keep you updated on that discussion. Yeah, then let me have a quick look. Yeah, I think yeah, no more questions now. Here's another question. Did the studies you review gave any comments on demand reduction for chemicals? Demand reduction, reduce the demand for chemicals, right? Was that an aspect in the study?
I try to remember now, but it's a big topic for sure, like in the discussion right now. But as I recall, it wasn't really so much a topic in the roadmaps. Either they were a bit more broad in scope, like they covered other industries as well, and then it wasn't so much into detail for each, or they used more of a base assumption. We assume that it will increase this much until that year, but I can be wrong here. I don't fully remember.
In any case, I think the concept of a circular economy is now emerging in both countries.
Yes.
So we also need to look at this issue.
Yeah,
yes, in my case, mechanical recycling and recycling is, of course, always a part of these.
Right, I think it's a very good question to start from reducing the demand. Yeah. Okay, well then, thank you very much, both of you, for the presentation. If any more questions appear in the chat, you can just answer directly if you like in the chat. I think I would like to proceed now to our next topic. So let me have our next speakers with us. Right. So our next topic will be the building sector and the study on strategies, concepts, and measures for decarbonizing the building stock in Germany and Japan. We again have invited experts for that. Let me just have them here. Yeah, I hope you can see them. Now we have Lotte Nowotnik, a researcher in the Energy, Transport and Climate Policy Unit at Wuppertal Institute with us, a member of the study team, and also head of the GJETC study team, actually, on the German side, and Yoshiyuki Kudo of the Institute of Energy Economics in Japan. So both of you will share the presentation of the results of this study on the building stock. So please share the slides and start. The floor is yours.
Sorry, I thought I already did share the slides. Hold on a moment. There we go.
Yes, excellent.
Kudo-san.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kudo from the Institute of Energy Economy Japan. I'm honored to have this opportunity to present our survey. As shown in the figure, next slide, please. As shown in the figure at the bottom of the slide, the building accounts for over 30% of the total final energy consumption and approximately 30% of the total carbon dioxide emission. As such, building has a large potential for energy conservation and CO2 reduction. The survey industry introduced here conducted jointly with Germany last year to investigate and compare the characteristics of buildings in both countries and the legal system and the measures related to the energy conservation and decarbonization in order to learn from each other. Next slide, please. Let me begin with the report from the Japanese side in the form of a summary of some survey results focusing on the change in the legal system. Japan legal system for energy conservation in housing and building dates back to the energy conservation law enacted in 1979 in the wake of oil shocks of the 1970s. When the energy conservation law was the first enacted, it focused on promoting energy saving in energy consuming industrial and the transportation sectors. Later, as a wake of climate change increased and the energy consumption grew, the law expanded to include the residential and the commercial sectors as well. After the Kyoto Protocol was adopted in 1997, the Top Runner program was introduced in 1998 as an energy conservation measure, mainly in the consumer and transportation sectors, to achieve greenhouse gas reduction target. Under the Top Runner program, the equipment with the best energy consumption efficiency among those covered by the program is designated as the top runner, and other companies are encouraged to catch up with the performance of the top runner. This program started with the 11 products, such as the passenger cars and air conditioners, and was later expanded to include 32 products. As for building materials, insulation materials and windows has been covered under the program since 2012 because 60 to 70% of the heat in and out of the house comes from wall, ceilings, floors, and the windows openings. In 2015, the Building Energy Conservation Law was enacted to strengthen energy conservation in the building because of the marked increase in energy consumption in the wake of a Great East Japan earthquake in May 2011. One of the features of the law is that it makes mandatory for the building owners to comply with the energy conservation standards for new construction and the expansion of residential buildings with a total floor area of 2,000 square meters or more. In response to the declaration of carbon neutrality by 2050 and the 46% reduction by 2030 announced in 2020 and 2021 respectively, and the roadmap for energy conservation measures in the housing and building was jointly complied in 2021. The roadmap set the goal of achieving ZEB and ZECH in such new buildings by 2030 and ensuring ZEB and ZECH level energy saving performance on average in the stock by 2050. As effort to achieve these goals, the roadmap also calls for raising the level of energy efficiency in the residential and the commercial sectors, strengthen the Top Runner program for equipment and the building materials, and the reinforcing energy efficiency labeling. Based on this roadmap, related laws including building energy conservation law and the building study law was raised in June 2022. The main revision is the expansion of the obligation scope to comply with the energy conservation standard to include all new buildings. The Housing Top Runner program also revised, adding condominiums for sales. I told you before the legal system being strengthened, and expanded to decarbonize buildings, but there are still some issues that need to be addressed. One is the need for continued government involvement in expanding the introduction of renewable energy, which played an important role in decarbonizing the buildings. The introduction of the renewable energy into building is led by municipalities. They set up the areas to promote the installation of renewable energy facilities according to the local conditions. The government also needs to monitor a trend in a municipality and identify issues that are appropriate. Another point is to strengthen retrofitting policies for existing buildings. The revised law I mentioned earlier established the obligation for new construction or addition, but as the number of new construction is on the decline, necessary measures for existing building are urgently needed. However, due to the customary practice in the used house market, where the invested cost in the energy saving renovation is not able to cover fully upon resale, and most of the housing owners do not willingly implement energy saving measures. So the measures to change the mindset of owners and energy saving stimulus measures were required. On the other hand, encouraging the house builders to make energy saving renovation may be worth considering. We discussed among the team about the idea of imposing a regulation that will allocate the number of the new buildings sold according to the number of the energy saving retrofits. However, the size of a construction company varies widely in Japan, and a detailed rule need to be established by the government. This is a summary of the Japanese side. The next we have the report from the Japanese side. Lot-san, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello also from my side. So while in Japan in 1979, the energy conservation law was enacted, in Germany, the heat installation ordinance, the first heat installation ordinance was put into place. And here on the graph, you can see how, this heat installation ordinance set new energy efficiency standards for buildings. And here on the graph, you can see how these standards have improved throughout the years. Since 2020, this kind of heat installation ordinance was merged with the then replaced energy saving ordinance and then energy saving act, as well as the Renewable Energies Act. And yes, just recently or last year, due to the Russian war against Ukraine and the discussion about how the energy prices are increasing, there was the so-called Easter package in Germany that envisioned that in very much accelerated expansion of the renewable energies, and shortly followed by that was an immediate climate action program that pinpointed at the necessity to also focus on renovation of buildings, while also integrating renewable energies into building, making it mandatory with a percentage of 65% for new buildings and also new heating systems. Now, this year, at the beginning of this year, the Efficient House 55 has become the new building standard. Now, this is about new builds, but as our study was focusing on the building stock, we can say that the energy performance requirements, and according to the Building Energy Act that is in place since 2020, is not only for new buildings, but also focusing on existing buildings undergoing major renovations. So each time major renovations are necessary, then the building owners have to keep in mind the energy performance requirements. And this Building Energy Act does come along with a number of policies that support the overall goal of making buildings more efficient. For example, the energy performance certificates that range from A+ to H. So A+ is the best performing building. And these certificates have to be presented to interested parties that would like to buy or rent a building, a housing. We also have, similar to the Top Runner program, performance standards for appliances that make it necessary to ensure energy efficiency and recyclability, while also informing about possible environmental externalities, and analyze the entire product life cycle. So given the necessity to undertake major renovation, of course it is necessary to have the respective financial incentives. So since about 2005, we have a number of loans and grants that are available for energy efficiency renovation and also integration of renewable energies. And the number or the amount of these funds have been increased lately for the time frame of 2023 until 2026. It was raised up to 14 billion euros. But having just the requirements and the financial incentives won't help very much if the building owners do not know where to start at or what to tackle first. So professional energy advice, of course, is necessary to, and actually also a prerequisite for financial incentives for renovation measures. And here we also have an individual energy renovation passport that guides through stepwise implementation towards near zero energy buildings. That is also subsidized. And last but not least, in Germany, we also have a life cycle assessment. So taking into consideration the material that is used for the buildings and also considering the embedded emissions during constructions. However, we can also identify some recommendations for Germany for further improvement of the policy package. First, of course, we need clear market signals to push for investments. And then we also need to increase the numbers and ambition level with regard to energy renovation to ensure the use of funds for grants and loans through, for example, one-stop shops, and enhance also the requirements for new builds, respectively the building shell and also the obligation of installing renewable energy such as PV. Reduce the demolition rate by setting clear priority on renovation over new build, and also set sustainable constructions as standard, namely integrating it into the Building Energy Act. To conclude, I would like to also point out what are the learnings for Germany and the EU, but also for Japan. For Germany and the EU, you can say that tighter standards on energy efficiency and labeling for some appliances, particularly heat pumps and air conditioners, are recommendable, while Japan can learn from Germany in terms of insulation, heat recovery, ventilation, and also the integration of renewable energies. And both countries definitely still need improvements with regard to the target volume, for example, the annual rate of retrofits and also the phasing out of fossil fuels. Further improvement is also needed for the retrofit market, such as increasing one-stop shop services or putting into place one-stop services and providing transparent certificates. Here also it is important to have a management of building floor spaces and take into consideration the embedded carbon emissions. As was already pointed out, we are continuing to discuss these topics, and possible further research areas are also identified. This could be, for example, building envelope efficiency to keep analyzing from the German point of view and make Japan profit from it, and also increase the knowledge on Japanese heat pumps and BEMS, HEMS. Also take into consideration the cost-effective building retrofit technique that is going to be a topic also in December this year. And then combining the knowledge from Japan and Germany on the subject of building with wood. And on a personal note, I also think that taking into consideration or taking a closer look at the question of how these kinds of developments are also undertaken in a just manner, namely how the just transition aspects are considered is also worth taking a look at. Having said this, I would like to hand over to Manfred Rauschen, who was also part of this study and is our expert in the council. And he will elaborate now on the past 12 months of development in Germany. Manfred, the floor is yours.
Yes, minasan konnichiwa, hello all together. Thank you very much to Lotte-san and Kudo-san. My name is Manfred Rauschen. I'm a member of GJETC since the beginning in 2016, and I'm managing director of Eco Center North Rhine-Westphalia since more than 25 years. And we are specialized on energy efficient and sustainable buildings. And I report now on the changes that have taken place in policy measures in the building sector since the study was completed. That means in the last 12 months. And I cannot remember a time in the last 30 years when so many decisions were made in climate protection in the building sector. And such an intensive political discussion was held on these topics in the last 12 months. The changes were caused by steps in climate protection, but also influenced by the war in the Ukraine and the shortage of housing we currently have in Germany. So the decision went to different directions. The decisions not always went the way committed climate activists would have liked. But altogether, I think we took giant steps towards more efficient or decarbonization of the building sector. One big point Lotte already mentioned is the obligation for new heating systems with a share of 65% renewable energies. That means that new heating systems have a share at least 65% from renewable energies, including electricity. And in Germany, this usually means installing a heat pump. And it means not any longer it will be allowed to install new gas or oil heating systems. There is a plan to install it. It's already decided to install it, but it was weakened and it was linked to municipal heat planning. This means is a new instrument, this municipal heat planning, that is intended to ensure that the planning of many individual decisions by building owners and commercial enterprises takes place against the background of the possible expansion of heat networks or other technical options. And due to the link to the heat planning, the obligation in big cities will take place in the mid of 2026 and in smaller cities in 2028. And another decision in September was to apply the new Building Energy Act, the German Building Energy Act, GEG, from January 2000 and from the beginning of next year. The mandatory efficiency level, Lotte already mentioned, is the efficiency house 55 since the beginning of this year. There was a plan to increase the level to the efficiency house 40, but this plan is cancelled. It was planned for 2025. But it was cancelled due to new construction activities has fallen sharply due to the high construction prices and interest rates. The next slide shows us the subsidies, the funding programs of the Federal Republic of Germany. the revision from the beginning of this year showed already many technical changes. One big point is the bonus for serial refurbishment. You can get up to 15% for the funding for the refurbishment of building if you use this serial refurbishment products. And the biggest point planned for the beginning of the next year is the revision of the subsidies for renewable heating systems, and it will be up to 70% for this matter, especially for low-income households, and subsidies for renovation of the building envelope to be increased from a maximum of 20% up to 30% for the renovation of the building envelope. The next slide shows the details in regards of the replacement funding of heating systems. The basic subsidy is 30%, and I already mentioned that we like to promote especially the funding of low-income households. They can get up to 25% for the replacement of particularly inefficient old systems, and an additional 30% income is for owner occupiers with a annual income of 40,000 up to 40,000 euro. Theoretically, this result is in subsidy rates of over 70%, but there is a corresponding gap. There is a maximum of 70%. And the last topic is a CO2 price for transport and buildings that we have already since 2019. Right now, it is on the level 30 euro per ton of CO2 emissions, and the plan to increase it was suspended. The next level will start with the beginning of the next year to the level of 40 euro per ton CO2 emissions. So that's on my side. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Manfred, and of course also the presenters of the study. Now there is a counterpart to Manfred Rauschen on the Japanese side. One of the council members is also an expert in buildings. So let me just, yeah, Ikaga-sensei, could you start your camera? And then we will have you with us here. Yes. So Professor Toshiharu Ikaga is head of the Department for System Design Engineering at the Faculty of Science and Technology of Keio University. So welcome. So what would be your comments from the Japanese side of you to the findings of the building study?
Excuse me, could you permit the screen share?
Yes.
I cannot share the screen.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
I'd like to make a short comment today's topic. I believe we are able to share information on the issues faced by Japan and Germany in order to reduce operational carbon in building stock. But as a future challenge, the promotion of whole life carbon reduction in building sector has been included in a group of 7 climate, energy, and environment ministers communique in April this year, and a group of 7 urban development ministers communique in July this year. In response, the Net Zero Carbon Building Promotion Council was established, supported by the Japanese Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism, and is currently developing a whole life carbon calculation tool until March 2024. However, the issue in Japan that manufacturing companies are lagging behind, extremely lagging behind EU and United States in carbon labeling of building materials and equipment. Japan should learn from Germany's excellent effort. It would be a good idea to address this point in GJETC. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mikaga-sensei. Indeed, it is a topic where both sides can bring on the table their competences and experiences and to develop it into, well, new ideas or maybe cooperation projects. And as Lotte already mentioned, we will continue to work on that topic. I will mention that later. Now, as my colleague Lumi just shared the information, our today's presentations will be all made available for download on the website. So the studies are already there, but also the presentations, which include some updates and additional comments, as you just heard. And we will also share the video recording. Now, let us have a look at the chat if there are any more questions. In the meantime, we had a question about the share of certified buildings in Germany. I just posted the answer. There's a question, is there any EPC register database available for the building stock of Germany and Japan? I think I would just ask the experts on both sides to reply directly in the chat, because we are actually already running out of time, I think. At this point, I would like to thank the presenters for the building study once again, and also the commenters, and come to our closing in the end. And for that, I would like to again ask Stefan Thomas, the German co-chair of GJETC, to give some final remarks.
Thank you all presenters who contributed to this outreach event today, and also I'd like to thank the audience for participating and for also actively asking questions in the chat. I think it's encouraging that to see that policy, businesses and science in both countries have already done a lot of analysis on the potentials and roadmaps, and that the policy mix towards energy efficiency and renewables in both buildings and industry is evolving rapidly in both countries. And it's also emerging for the new decarbonized feedstocks and processes in the petrochemical industry. At the same time, it became clear that more research, development and demonstration is needed on these sustainable feedstocks for the petrochemical industry, and also on whole life decarbonization of buildings. And that also higher policy ambition, even higher policy ambition and effort is needed to harness the energy efficiency and decarbonization potential in both sectors. So I hope that the two studies will be useful for policymakers and businesses in both countries, and also beyond, in achieving the energy and climate policy targets. Again, invite all of you to take a closer look at the reports which are found at our website, gjetc.org. I will be glad to see you again at future public or invited events of the GJETC. And finally, I think Johanna has some announcements to make.
Yes, as promised. Thank you, Stefan. As promised, there will be an outlook. So Lumi, if you could just share the slides about the next upcoming events. We are going to have a webinar on in the forerun of the COP28 Climate Summit, end of November, probably November 22nd, about the geopolitical developments, COP28, and their relevance for energy policy in Japan and Germany. That will be held online again. Then we'll have a council meeting that is not public to the for public, just internal council meeting, but we will of course inform the public about the next study topics the council members will discuss here. And then, as mentioned, in December, we will continue to work on the building issue and on the building stock issue. We'll have a innovation roundtable on scan to BIM, so building information modeling. For those who are not familiar, scan to BIM technology and prefabrication of innovative insulation in retrofitting of residential buildings. So the question is how to make retrofitting, renovation more cost efficient, more sustainable, and also faster to decarbonize the building stock in both countries. So we are very much looking forward to this event. This is on invitation only, but if any one of you is interested in participating in this online event, online workshop, just reach out to us. Okay, so thank you very much. Thanks to all the presenters of today. So I thank you very much for starting or for preparing the presentations. Thanks to the audience for listening today. And as mentioned, you will receive information about the download for the presentations and also of the video recording. So once again, thank you everyone. Have a nice evening in Japan. Have a nice rest of the day in Germany and see you again soon. Thank you very much and goodbye.